The sodium glow of streetlights casts long shadows across the quiet residential street. Queenslander homes sit elevated on their stilts, their weatherboard facades glowing pale in the darkness. The distinctive sound of fruit bats echoes overhead, their wings cutting through the humid night air. A possum scurries across a power line. The camera slowly pushes toward one particular house at the end of the street, number 47. The front porch light flickers once, twice, then steadies. Into her bedroom, number 47, Knight Sarah Brightwell, late 20s, sits bolt upright in bed. Her breath comes in sharp gasps. The digital clock on her bedside table reads 3:11 a.m. in angry red digits. The room is suffocatingly still, no sound from the street outside, no rustling of eucalyptus leaves in the night breeze. Nothing. Sarah's eyes adjust to the darkness. Her bedroom is modest but lived in. Clothes draped over a chair, books stacked on the dresser, a half-empty glass of water catching moonlight on the nightstand. She reaches for her phone, fingers trembling slightly. The screen lights up her face with cold blue light. She opens her notes app, scrolls to a document titled The Occurrences. She adds a new line. Night 18, 3:11 a.m. Woke suddenly. No sound yet. Sarah sets the phone down, screen still glowing. She pulls the sheet up to her chin despite the Brisbane heat. Sweat beads on her forehead. The silence stretches. 1 minute passes. 2. Then knock, knock, knock. 3 deliberate raps on her bedroom door. Sarah's entire body goes rigid. Her eyes lock on the door. The white painted surface seems to glow slightly in the darkness. Hello? Her voice barely rises above a whisper. No response. She swallows hard, throat clicking dry. Is someone there? The silence that follows feels alive somehow. Watching, waiting. Sarah forces herself to move. She swings her legs out of bed, feet finding the cool floorboards. Every muscle in her body screams at her to stay put, but she's been through this 17 times before. She knows what comes next. She crosses the room in 4 careful steps. Her hand reaches for the doorknob, brass cool against her palm. She yanks the door open. The hallway beyond is empty. The bathroom door at the end of the hall stands open. Darkness within. The spare bedroom to her left, door ajar as she left it, shows only shadows. Sarah steps into the hallway. The floorboards creak under her weight. She moves to the spare bedroom first, pushing the door wider. Moonlight through the window illuminates cardboard boxes stacked in the corner, an old desk, cobwebs in the ceiling corners. Nothing. She crosses to the bathroom, pulls the light cord. Fluorescent brightness floods the small space. White tiles, chrome fixtures. Her reflection stares back from the mirror, pale and frightened. Nothing. Sarah returns to the hallway. She stands there in her oversized sleep shirt, arms wrapped around herself. The house settles around her with the familiar sounds of old timber. But there's something else now, a feeling she's not alone. The temperature drops. Sarah sees her breath puff out in front of her face, a cloud of white mist in the humid Brisbane night. That shouldn't be possible. Not in summer, not in Queensland. What do you want? Her voice sounds braver than she feels. The hallway grows darker somehow, as if the shadows are thickening, gathering. The spare bedroom door begins to swing shut. Slowly, deliberately, no breeze, no explanation. Click! The latch catches. Sarah backs toward her bedroom. Her shoulder blades hit the doorframe. She fumbles behind her for the door, unable to take her eyes off the hallway. The bathroom light flickers, once, twice. Then darkness swallows everything. Sarah screams. The office occupies the ground floor of a converted Queenslander in the eclectic West End neighbourhood. Through the windows you can see passing cyclists, the local coffee shop across the street, a mural depicting Australian wildlife on the building next door. Inside, the space is organised chaos. One wall is dominated by a massive corkboard covered in photographs, newspaper clippings, maps with coloured pins and connecting strings, cases, unsolved mysteries, patterns only visible to those who know where to look. The opposite wall holds shelving units packed with equipment, EMF meters, digital voice recorders, full spectrum cameras, thermal imaging devices, motion sensors. Some pieces are off-the-shelf paranormal investigation equipment, others appear custom-built, jury-rigged with circuit boards and salvaged components held together with electrical tape and determination. A large desk sits in the centre of the room, buried under case files, books on folklore and quantum physics, takeaway coffee cups, and a laptop displaying multiple feeds from security cameras. Elias Crowe stands at the corkboard, studying a cluster of pins on a map of Greater Brisbane. He's 38 but carries himself like someone older, weighted down by things he's seen. Dark hair starting to silver at the temples, perpetual 5 o'clock shadow, wearing dark jeans and a button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up. His eyes are grey and analytical, constantly processing, measuring, calculating. In his hand he holds a red marker. He draws a circle around 3 pins clustered in the western suburbs. 3 reports in Paddington in the last 6 weeks, he says to himself. His voice is low, measured, carrying a slight rasp from too much coffee and too little sleep, all within a 2-kilometre radius. Barley, a 6-year-old bloodhound, lies sprawled on a dog bed near the desk. His massive head rests on his paws, jowls spread across the cushion. His expressive brown eyes track Elias's movements. One ear flicks at the sound of Elias's voice. "Don't give me that look," Elias says without turning around. "I know it's almost lunchtime." Barley's tail thumps once against the floor. The front door opens with a jingle of bells tied to the handle. Mara Flynn enters in a rush of colour and energy. She's 33, with copper red hair pulled into a messy bun, dressed in flowing layers, a purple tank top under a lightweight cardigan covered in mystical patterns, worn jeans, boots decorated with small charms, and trinkets that jingle when she walks. Multiple rings on her fingers, a crystal pendant around her neck. She carries 2 takeaway coffee cups and a paper bag that smells like fresh pastries. "Morning, Crow. Morning, Barley Bear." She sets the coffees and bag on the desk, immediately crossing to the bloodhound and dropping to her knees to give him enthusiastic pets. Barley's entire rear end wiggles with joy. "Who's a good supernatural sniffer? Who's the best boy? You are." "Yes, you are." Elias retrieves one of the coffees, takes a long drink. "You're in a good mood." "Had a dream last night," Mara says, still fussing over Barley. "Not a vision, just a regular dream." "Do you know how rare that is for me? I dreamed I was at the beach and there were dolphins and I didn't see a single dead person or ominous fog entity. It was brilliant. Must be nice," Elias says, but there's warmth underneath the deadpan delivery. Mara stands, brushing dog hair off her jeans. "What are you working on?" She moves to the corkboard, studying the map over his shoulder. She's nearly a foot shorter than him, has to stand on her toes to see properly. "Pattern analysis," Elias says. "I've been tracking reports that come through our website and cross-referencing with local news items, social media posts, even ghost hunting group forums. Riveting Saturday night for you, I'm sure. Found something interesting." He taps the cluster of pins. "Paddington, 3 separate households reporting similar phenomena: unexplained knocking, temperature drops, feelings of being watched. Mara leans closer, eyes narrowing. Her expression shifts, the playfulness draining away. When she gets like this, focused and serious, you can see the depth underneath her colourful exterior. They're on the same street? Within 2 blocks, all reported in the last 6 weeks. That's not a coincidence. No, Elias agrees, it's not. Mara reaches out, fingers hovering near the pins without touching them. Elias has learned not to interrupt when she does this. Sometimes she picks up on things, impressions left behind, like fingerprints on reality. After a moment, she drops her hand. There's something cold about this area, but also... She struggles for words. Reaching? Reaching for what? Don't know yet. She turns to face him. Are we taking the case? Haven't been contacted by anyone in that area, just tracking the pattern for now. Maybe we should reach out? If there's a concentrated haunting or some kind of entity moving through the neighbourhood, people might need help. Elias considers this. Part of him, the scientific part, the skeptical part that still lives in his head despite everything he's witnessed, resists the idea of cold calling potential clients. It feels too much like the charlatans and con artists who prey on people's fears. But the other part of him, the part that remembers being 7 years old and seeing something that shouldn't exist, standing at the foot of his bed, knows that sometimes people need help and don't know where to turn. Let me think about it, he says. The computer on the desk chimes. New email notification. Barley lifts his head, ears perking up. Dogs always know when something important is about to happen. Elias crosses to the desk, sets his coffee down, moves the mouse to wake the screen. The email preview shows, from Sarah Brightwell, subject, urgent, need help, paranormal activity. Mara reads over his shoulder. Speak of the devil? Elias opens the email. It's brief, typed with the desperate speed of someone who hasn't slept properly in weeks. Hello, I found your website through a search for paranormal investigators in Brisbane. I don't know if you're legitimate or if I'm losing my mind, but I need help. Something is in my house. I've tried everything. Blessing, cleansing, ignoring it. Nothing works. It's getting worse. Every night at exactly 3:11 a.m, something knocks on my bedroom door. Always 3 knocks. When I open the door, nothing is there. But I can feel it. I know something is there. Last night, the temperature dropped so much I could see my breath. In Brisbane. In summer. That's not normal. I don't know what else to do. I'm afraid to sleep in my own home. Please, if you can help, contact me. Sarah Brightwell. At the bottom of the email is an address, 47 Lock Street, Paddington. Elias and Mara exchange a look. That's inside your cluster, Mara says quietly. Elias pulls up the map on his laptop, types in the address. A pin drops onto the digital map, landing directly in the centre of the circle he drew on the corkboard. Number 47, he reads, right in the middle. Mara wraps her arms around herself despite the warmth of the office. This isn't random, Crowe. Something's happening in that area, something focused. Barley stands, shakes himself head to tail, and pads over to sit directly in front of Elias. The bloodhound stares up at him with those deep, soulful eyes. Don't you start too, Elias mutters. He agrees with me, Mara says. We need to take this case. Elias reads the email again. He can feel the desperation in every word. Sarah Brightwell is terrified, alone, running out of options. And if this is connected to the pattern he's been tracking, if something is building in Paddington, then she's not going to be the last person to reach out. He makes a decision. Draft a response, Elias says. Professional but compassionate. Tell her we'd like to schedule a consultation tomorrow if she's available. Mara's face lights up. On it. She moves to her own desk, a smaller workspace in the corner decorated with crystals, tarot cards, and a small altar with candles and offerings. Elias looks down at Barley. The bloodhound hasn't moved, still watching him intently. "This one feels different, doesn't it?" Elias says quietly. Barley's tail thumps twice. "Yeah," Elias agrees. "Me too." He turns back to the corkboard, to the cluster of pins, the circle he drew. In his years of investigating the paranormal, he's learned to trust his instincts. Right now, every instinct is screaming that this case is important. Something is happening in Paddington, something that's been building for weeks. And Sarah Brightwell just gave them the key to understanding what. Elias picks up a black marker and writes across the top of the corkboard, "Paddington Cluster, active investigation. The game is on." Interior Paranormal Studies and Investigations Office, West End. Later that day, the afternoon sun slants through the windows, painting golden rectangles across the wooden floor. Barley has relocated to one of these warm patches and lies stretched out, snoring softly. Mara sits cross-legged on the floor in front of the corkboard, surrounded by printouts, case files, and reference books, her laptop balanced on her knees. She's changed into comfortable clothes for research mode, loose yoga pants and an oversized hoodie. "Okay," she says, flipping through a spiral notebook. "I've been diving into everything I can find about Lock Street and the surrounding area. History, folklore, previous reports." Elias sits at the main desk, also surrounded by research materials. He's taken off his button-down shirt, now wearing just a grey t-shirt. His own laptop displays multiple browser tabs, property records, historical archives, geological surveys. "Find anything?" he asks. "Bits and pieces. Lock Street was developed in the early 1920s. Most of the houses on that street are original Queenslanders, so we're talking about buildings that are 100 years old or so." "Old buildings, old memories," Elias says. It's something his mentor used to say. Buildings hold on to things, events, emotions. Sometimes they hold on too tight. "Exactly. But here's where it gets interesting." Mara pulls out a photograph, printed from a historical database. The land where Lock Street sits was originally part of a larger estate owned by the Brisbane Diocese. Back in the 1860s, there was a small chapel there. Elias looks up from his laptop. "A chapel? What happened to it?" "Burned down in 1873. The historical record says it was an accident. Cooking fire got out of control from an adjacent building. But I found some newspaper archives from that period." She shuffles through printouts. "Here, from the Brisbane Courier, July 1873, she reads. "The Chapel of St. Augustine was consumed by fire in the early hours of July 12th. Local residents reported hearing screams from within the structure, though the chapel was believed to be unoccupied at the time of the blaze. Authorities are investigating the cause." "Screams from an empty building," Elias says. "Classic." It gets better. 3 more articles over the following months mention strange occurrences near the burned chapel site. People seeing lights where the building used to stand, hearing singing. One woman claimed she saw a figure in white walking through the ruins. Elias stands, crossing to look at Mara's research. "So we've got a chapel that burned down under mysterious circumstances, built on land that later became a residential street. And now, 150 years later, 3 houses on that street are reporting paranormal activity." "Not just 3 houses," Mara corrects. "Sarah Brightwell at 47 Lock Street is the latest, but I found references to 2 other properties on the same street in the last 6 weeks. She pulls up a document on her laptop. "House number 39. Couple reported hearing footsteps in their hallway at night. They moved out 3 weeks ago. And the third, number 51, single mother with 2 kids. She filed a noise complaint with the council about knocking sounds in the walls. When inspectors came out, they found no evidence of possums or structural issues. Families now staying with relatives. Elias processes this information, his mind automatically organising it into patterns and connections. 3 houses on the same street, all reporting activity within weeks of each other. What's the connection? Why those houses specifically? Mara's fingers fly across her keyboard. Working on that, I'm pulling property records now to see if there's any geographical connection to the chapel site. Good. I'll look into the families themselves, see if there's a connection there, shared experiences, backgrounds, anything that might make them targets. They work in companionable silence for several minutes. The only sounds, Barley's snoring and the clicking of keyboards. Mara's phone buzzes. She glances at it and smiles. Sarah Brightwell replied to my email. She wants to meet tomorrow. 2 o'clock work for us? Elias checks his calendar, though he already knows it's empty. Since starting Paranormal Studies and Investigations 3 years ago, his life has been consumed by the work. No time for relationships, hobbies, normal human activities. Just cases, research, and trying to understand the inexplicable. Sometimes he wonders if he's running toward answers or away from his past. 2 o'clock's fine, he says. Tell her we'll come to her place. Initial consultation, no charge. We'll assess the situation and determine if we can help. Mara types out a response. Done. How are you feeling about this one? It's a loaded question. Mara knows better than anyone how Elias compartmentalizes, how he keeps his emotions locked away behind walls of logic and scientific method. But she also knows those walls aren't as solid as he pretends. Cautiously intrigued, he says after a moment. The pattern is undeniable. 3 houses, similar phenomena, concentrated time frame and location. If there's a historical connection to the chapel, that gives us a potential origin point for whatever's happening. But, Mara prompts, reading the hesitation in his voice. But 3:11 a.m. bothers me. The devil's hour is traditionally 3 a.m., Mara says. Some people say 3:11 is a specific callback to biblical numerology. 11 minutes past 3, a corruption of the Holy Trinity, 111, or it's just a time, Elias counters. We can't impose meaning where there might be none. Can't we? Mara closes her laptop, giving him her full attention. Crowe, we've been doing this long enough to know that nothing in our work is random. Times have significance, places have significance. The paranormal operates according to rules we don't fully understand yet, but they're still rules. Elias returns to his desk, rubbing his temples. He can feel a headache building behind his eyes. I just want to approach this methodically, gather evidence, test hypotheses, not jump to conclusions based on folklore and numerology. And I want to trust that the universe is trying to tell us something, Mara says gently. We balance each other out, remember? Your science, my intuition. That's why this works. She's right, of course. They've been partners for 2 years now after Mara answered his classified ad looking for a research assistant. She'd walked into the office with her crystals and her tarot cards and her unshakable belief in the spiritual world. He'd almost turned her away on the spot. Then she'd touched one of his case files and accurately described details he'd never written down, details he'd seen with his own eyes but kept locked away in his memory. After that, he'd hired her on the spot. Fair point, Elias concedes. So tomorrow we meet Sarah Brightwell, assess the house, and see what we're dealing with. And then we figure out what burned down that chapel in 1873 and whether it's still around. Mara shivers despite the warmth of the office. You think whatever's in Sarah's house is connected to the chapel fire. I think 150 years is a long time for something to wait. But if it's been dormant all this time and suddenly becoming active now, we need to understand why. Elias looks at the corkboard again, at the circle of pins. In his mind, he's already planning the investigation, equipment needed, research to complete, questions to ask, but underneath all the planning, there's something else. A feeling he can't quite name. The same feeling he had when he was 7 years old, standing in his bedroom doorway, watching something that shouldn't exist walk through a wall. A sense that he's about to learn something new about the nature of reality. And that knowledge might change everything. Barley suddenly lifts his head, ears perked toward the front windows. A low whine escapes his throat. "What is it, boy?" Mara asks. The bloodhound stands, walks to the window and stares out at the street, his hackles raised slightly along his shoulders. Elias and Mara exchange glances. Barley's never wrong about these things. His sensitivity to paranormal activity is the reason they bring him on investigations. Elias joins the dog at the window. Outside, the street looks normal. People walking past, cars driving by, a cyclist waiting at the intersection. But Barley continues to stare, focused on something neither Elias nor Mara can see. "Is it here?" Mara asks quietly, coming to stand on Barley's other side. "In the office?" Barley whines again, uncertain. Elias pulls an EMF meter from his pocket. He's taken to carrying one at all times, just in case. He powers it on. The device measures electromagnetic fields, fluctuations of which sometimes indicate paranormal presence. The meter reads normal, baseline. But Barley's still agitated. "Easy, boy," Elias soothes, running a hand along the dog's back. "Whatever it is, it's not here now." Gradually, Barley's hackles lower. He looks up at Elias, then back out the window, then finally returns to his sunny patch on the floor. "That was weird," Mara says. "Add it to the log," Elias instructs. "Date, time, Barley's reaction, everything." "You think it's connected to the case?" "Everything's connected until proven otherwise." It's approaching evening now. The office has taken on the golden quality of late afternoon light. Soon they'll need to turn on the overhead fixtures. Elias makes a decision. "Let's call it a day. We need to be fresh for tomorrow. Go home, get some rest." "You going to follow your own advice?" Mara asks with a knowing look. Eventually. "Crowe, I'll leave by 9, he promises. "I just want to dig a little more into the chapel history, see if I can find any records about what was happening there before the fire." Mara packs up her things, slinging her messenger bag over her shoulder. "Don't stay too late, and eat something that isn't takeaway coffee." "Yes, Mum." She flips him off affectionately and heads for the door. "Come on, Barley, let's get you home and fed." Barley immediately perks up at the word fed, following Mara to the door with enthusiastic tail wags. "Night, Crowe. See you tomorrow." "Night, Mara. Night, Barley." The door closes with a jingle of bells, and Elias is alone in the office. The silence settles around him like a familiar blanket. This is when he does his best work, in the quiet hours when the world moves on without him. He returns to his laptop, pulling up the historical archives again, searching for any mention of St. Augustine's Chapel. What was happening there in the months before the fire? Who was the priest? Were there any incidents, complaints, concerns? The sun continues its descent. Shadows lengthen across the office. Elias works, piecing together a puzzle from fragments scattered across a century and a half. Somewhere in Paddington, Sarah Brightwell sits in her house, dreading the approach of night, dreading the moment when her clock will read 3:11 a.m. and something will knock on her door. The next afternoon arrives with typical Brisbane humidity, the air thick enough to swim through. The sky is that bright, endless blue unique to Queensland, interrupted only by the occasional wisp of cloud. Elias's vehicle, a dark blue SUV with tinted windows and modified storage in the back for equipment, pulls onto Lock Street. Mara sits in the passenger seat, notepad in her lap, Barley occupies the back seat, head out the window, ears flapping in the breeze. The street is quiet, tree-lined with established eucalyptus and jacarandas. The houses are quintessentially Paddington, weatherboard Queenslanders elevated on stumps, most painted in heritage colours with decorative fretwork and wide verandas, well-maintained gardens, neat footpaths. It looks like the safest, most normal suburban street imaginable. Number 47 should be up here on the right, Mara says, checking the GPS on her phone. Elias slows the vehicle, scanning house numbers. 39, 43, 45, there, 47. It's a classic Queenslander, painted in cream with dark green trim. The garden is immaculate, roses blooming along the fence line, a mango tree heavy with fruit in the front yard. A small gate leads to stairs climbing up to the front porch. Elias parks on the street, killing the engine. For a moment, they all sit in silence, studying the house. Looks peaceful, Mara observes. They always do in daylight, Elias replies. He opens his door, stepping out into the humid afternoon. Mara follows suit, and they release Barley from the back. The bloodhound immediately begins sniffing the ground, working his way along the fence line. Elias pops the SUV's rear hatch, revealing their portable investigation kit. He pulls out a small black bag containing EMF meter, digital voice recorder, notepad, and a tablet for taking photos and notes. Starting with basics, he says to Mara. Interview first, baseline readings, visual inspection of the property. Save the heavy equipment for tonight if she agrees to a full investigation. Got it. They approach the gate. Barley has reached the front fence now and stops, head raised, sniffing the air. His body language changes, tail lowering, ears back slightly. Not aggressive, but cautious. Barley's picking up something, Mara observes. Elias watches the dog carefully. He's uncertain, interested but wary. They open the gate, which squeaks on hinges that need oiling. The sound seems unnaturally loud in the quiet afternoon. They climb the stairs to the front porch, and Elias raises his hand to knock on the screen door. Before his knuckles can make contact, the inner door swings open. Sarah Brightwell stands in the doorway. She looks exactly like someone who hasn't slept properly in 18 days. Dark circles under her eyes, skin pale despite the Brisbane sun, hair pulled back in a careless ponytail. She's wearing jeans and an oversized cardigan despite the heat, as if she can't get warm. But her eyes are sharp, alert, cataloguing every detail of her visitors. Paranormal Studies and Investigations? She asks. Her voice is hoarse, tired. That's us, Elias says, showing his identification. Not official, but professional. I'm Elias Crowe. This is my associate Mara Flynn, and that's Barley. The bloodhound has climbed the stairs and sits politely, looking up at Sarah with those soulful eyes. Sarah's expression softens slightly at the sight of the dog. You bring a dog to paranormal investigations? He's more sensitive to certain phenomena than our equipment, Mara explains, and better company. A ghost of a smile crosses Sarah's face. Come in, please. She pushes open the screen door, holding it as they enter. Barley hesitates at the threshold, sniffing carefully before finally crossing. So I'm not crazy, Sarah says. It's not a question. You're not crazy, Elias confirms. Something is definitely happening in this house. Something we can measure and document. Can you stop it? Elias turns to face her. He knows she wants reassurance, wants him to promise that everything will be okay, but he's learned the hard way not to make promises he can't keep. We can try to understand it, he says carefully, identify what's causing the phenomena and why. Sometimes understanding is enough to resolve the situation. Other times, more active intervention is required. I'll do whatever you need, Sarah says. Just please help me. Mara steps forward. Sarah, We'd like to conduct a full investigation tonight, set up equipment, monitor the premises, see if we can capture evidence of what's happening and possibly make contact. Contact? Sarah's eyes widen. With whatever's knocking? If it's trying to communicate, we should listen, Mara explains. Sometimes entities have unfinished business, messages they're trying to convey. If we can understand what it wants, we might be able to help it move on. Sarah considers this. Will I be safe? We'll be here the entire time, Elias assures her. And based on the pattern you've described, the activity seems focused on communication rather than causing harm. The knocking, the temperature changes, these are attempts to get your attention, not hurt you. Okay, Sarah decides. Tonight. Do it tonight. I can't take another week of this. We'll need to prepare, Elias says. Our office is only about 20 minutes from here. We'll go back, load up our equipment and return this evening. We'll want to set up well before 3:11 a.m. What time should I expect you? Around 9 or 10 p.m. That gives us time to position everything, calibrate, establish baselines. Sarah nods, processing all of this. Should I do anything to prepare? Just continue your normal evening routine, Mara advises. Don't do anything to provoke or dissuade the activity. We want tonight to proceed as typically as possible. They make their way back to the living room. Barley reluctantly leaves his post at the wall, following close to Elias's heels. The dog keeps looking back over his shoulder at Sarah's bedroom, a soft whine escaping his throat. He doesn't like this, Sarah observes. Barley's highly sensitive to paranormal activity, Elias explains. Whatever he's picking up in your bedroom is making him uneasy, but he's not showing signs of immediate danger. No aggression, no panic, just wariness. That's moderately comforting, I suppose. They reach the front door. Elias pulls out a business card, handing it to Sarah. My mobile number is on there. If anything unusual happens before tonight, anything at all, call me immediately. I will. Thank you for taking me seriously. You have no idea what it means to have someone believe me. We know exactly what it means, Mara says warmly. We'll see you tonight, Sarah. They exit back into the bright afternoon. The heat hits them after the air-conditioned interior, a wall of humidity and sunshine. Barley immediately begins a more thorough investigation of the exterior, sniffing along the foundation of the house, the stairs, the porch railings. Elias and Mara stand on the footpath, speaking in low voices. What do you think? Mara asks. Legitimate activity? Elias says. The EMF readings, the temperature anomaly, the magnetic distortion, all of that points to genuine paranormal phenomena. Add in Barley's reactions and Sarah's consistent timeline, and we've got a solid case. Agreed, but there's something else. Mara chews her lower lip, a nervous habit. When I was in that hallway, standing outside her bedroom door, I felt what? Sadness. Deep, profound sadness. Not threatening, not angry, just lost. Lost how? Like something that doesn't know where it belongs, searching for something it can't find. Elias makes a mental note. Mara's impressions often provide insights their equipment can't capture. Electromagnetic fields and temperature readings tell them something is present. Mara tells them what it feels like, which sometimes points toward why it's present. Barley completes his circuit of the property and returns to them. His body language has relaxed somewhat, though he still appears thoughtful, if a dog can look thoughtful. They load into the SUV. Elias starts the engine, but before pulling away, he takes one last look at number 47 Lock Street. In the front window, he sees Sarah watching them leave. She raises one hand in a small wave. He waves back. Let's go prep for tonight, he says to Mara. I want to bring everything. Full spectrum cameras, thermal imaging, multiple voice recorders, the works. I'll prepare some protective measures too, Mara says, just in case things get intense. Sage? Salt? And a few other tricks I've been working on if we're dealing with something actively trying to communicate. I want to make sure we can maintain control of the environment. They drive down Lock Street, passing the other houses Elias has marked in his research, number 39, where the couple heard footsteps, number 51, where the single mother reported knocking in the walls. All the pieces are on the same board. Now they just need to figure out what game they're playing. Interior Paranormal Studies and Investigations Office, West End, late afternoon. The office has transformed into something resembling mission control. Equipment cases lie open across every available surface. Cables snake across the floor. Batteries charge on the desk. The smell of fresh coffee fills the air. They're going to need it for the long night ahead. Elias methodically checks each piece of equipment, ensuring everything is charged, calibrated, and functional. Years of investigation have taught him that equipment failure at a crucial moment can mean the difference between capturing groundbreaking evidence and coming home empty-handed. He holds up each device, testing it. Full spectrum camera, records visible light, infrared, and ultraviolet, capturing wavelengths human eyes can't perceive. Active. Thermal imaging camera shows temperature variations in real time, highlighting cold spots or heat signatures. Active. Digital voice recorders, 4 units. High sensitivity audio capture for EVP, electronic voice phenomena. Active. Static night vision cameras, 6 units. Fixed positions, continuous recording, all active. Motion sensors, 8 units. Trigger alerts when movement occurs, all active. EMF meters, multiple. Constant monitoring of electromagnetic fields, all active. Barley watches all this preparation from his dog bed, head resting on his paws. He knows what the equipment means. They're going hunting. Mara sits cross-legged on the floor in her corner of the office, surrounded by her own tools, crystals of various types and sizes, bundles of dried herbs, sage, rosemary, lavender, small bottles of essential oils, a wooden box containing protective talismans and charms. She's also packed her runestones and a black mirror she uses for scrying. If the situation calls for it, she might attempt to make more direct contact with whatever haunts Sarah's bedroom. How many investigations have we done now? Mara asks, carefully wrapping each crystal in cloth before placing it in her bag. Officially, 47, Elias replies, inspecting cables. Unofficially, if you count site surveys and consultations that didn't develop into full investigations, probably closer to 70. And how many have had this level of sustained, consistent activity? Elias pauses. Maybe a dozen. Most cases turn out to be environmental factors, misunderstood phenomena, or overactive imaginations, Mara finishes. I know, but this one's different. How so? The pattern, the precision. 3:11 a.m. exactly every single night for 3 weeks. That level of consistency suggests intelligence, purpose. Or it could be a temporal echo, Elias counters, playing devil's advocate as he always does. Residual energy from a traumatic event, replaying like a recording. No consciousness, no intent, just a scratch in reality playing the same moment over and over. You don't believe that? I don't know what I believe yet. That's why we investigate. Mara stands, stretching. Her knees crack audibly. Do you ever wonder if we're approaching this wrong? If scientific equipment and data collection is missing the point? What do you mean? She joins him at the equipment table, picking up one of the EMF meters. These measure electromagnetic fields, temperature changes, sound waves, all physical phenomena. But what if consciousness exists on a level we can't measure? What if souls, spirits, whatever you want to call them, what if they're quantum, existing in superposition until observed? You've been reading too much fringe physics, Elias says, but there's no heat in it, or not enough. Quantum mechanics proves that observation affects reality at the subatomic level. The double slit experiment shows that particles behave differently when watched versus when they're not. What if consciousness works the same way? What if the act of investigation actually changes the phenomena we're studying? Elias has thought about this more times than he can count. The observer effect applied to paranormal research. It's one of the fundamental problems plaguing their field. How do you objectively study something that might be inherently subjective? That's why we work together, he says finally. My equipment, your intuition, my skepticism, your openness. Between us, maybe we get closer to the truth. Or maybe we're both completely wrong and the truth is something neither of us has considered. Well, that's a cheerful thought, Mara grins. Just keeping you humble, Crowe. The sun is setting now, painting the office in shades of orange and gold. Soon it will be dark, soon it will be time to return to Lock Street. Elias's phone buzzes. Text message from Sarah Brightwell. Still okay for tonight? No pressure if you've changed your minds. I know this is crazy. He types back, we'll be there by 9 p.m. This isn't crazy. See you soon. Sarah's nervous, he tells Mara. Of course she is. She's about to spend the night in her haunted house with 2 paranormal investigators and a bloodhound waiting for a ghost to knock on her door. I'd be nervous too. At least she's got us for company. Lucky her. They finish their preparations. Equipment packed into protective cases, batteries checked, backup batteries packed, memory cards formatted and ready, notepads, pens, flashlights, first aid kit, everything they might need for the night ahead. Elias changes into darker clothes, black jeans, dark grey shirt. Easier to move in, less likely to show up on camera inadvertently. Mara does the same, trading her colourful layers for black leggings and a dark purple top. Ready? Elias asks. Mara takes a deep breath, centering herself. She closes her eyes briefly, lips moving in a silent word. Prayer, intention, focus. When she opens her eyes again, she's settled into investigation mode. Calm, alert, prepared. Ready? Come on, Barley. Time to work. The bloodhound stands, stretches, and shakes himself from nose to tail. His tail begins wagging. Despite the seriousness of the situation, Barley loves investigations. The chance to use his incredible sense of smell to track things invisible to everyone else to be useful and important. They load the equipment into the SUV. The back is packed full, cases stacked on cases, cables coiled, everything secured so it won't shift during the drive. The last light of day fades as they pull out of the parking lot and head toward Paddington, toward Lock Street, toward Sarah Brightwell and her nightly visitor. The city passes by the windows, streetlights flicker on. People head home from work, to restaurants, to normal Friday night activities. They have no idea that 3 investigators and a bloodhound are about to spend the night trying to make contact with whatever lurks in a quiet suburban home. What's your gut telling you about this one? Elias asks as they navigate traffic. Mara stares out the window, watching the city lights blur past. That we're about to learn something important, something that connects to your pattern, to the chapel, to whatever's been building in Paddington. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have right now. Ask me again at 3:11 a.m. They drive in silence for a while, each lost in their own thoughts. Finally, Mara speaks again. Crowe? Yeah? Whatever happens tonight, whatever we find, promise me we'll see this through, no matter how strange it gets. Elias glances at her. When have we ever not seen a case through? I'm serious. I have a feeling about this one, a strong feeling, like we're standing at a threshold and once we cross it, there's no going back. Mara, promise me. He can hear the intensity in her voice. Mara's feelings shouldn't be dismissed. Her intuition has proven accurate Too many times to ignore. I promise, he says. We see this through. Together. She relaxes slightly. Together. In the back seat, Barley whines softly, sensing the tension. It's okay, boy. Mara reaches back to pet him. We've got this. The SUV turns onto Lock Street. The houses are lit from within, warm yellow light spilling from windows. Families eating dinner, watching television, living their normal lives, all except number 47. Sarah's house is dark except for a single porch light. She's waiting for them. Elias parks on the street, kills the engine. For a moment, they all sit there looking at the house. Last chance to back out, he says to Mara. Not a chance in hell. That's my girl. He turns to Barley. And you? You ready? Barley's tail thumps against the seat. All right then, let's go find out what's knocking on Sarah Brightwell's door. They exit the vehicle and begin unloading equipment. The investigation is about to begin. Into Sarah Brightwell's house, various rooms, night. The house has transformed into an investigation command centre. Equipment cases lie open in the living room. Cables run through doorways, connecting cameras to laptops positioned on the dining room table. Red recording lights glow in the darkness. It's 10:47 p.m. 3 hours and 24 minutes until 3:11 a.m. Elias stands in the dining room, monitoring multiple laptop screens, displaying camera feeds from throughout the house. 6 different angles: bedroom, hallway, living room, kitchen, spare bedroom, and an exterior view of the front porch. Sarah's bedroom has received the most attention. 2 cameras positioned at different angles, voice recorders placed near the door, EMF meters on continuous monitoring, the thermal imaging camera aimed directly at the cold spot Barley identified earlier. Mara moves through the house in a slow, methodical pattern. In each room, she pauses, closes her eyes, and simply feels. Not thinking, not analysing, just opening herself to whatever impressions the space might offer. Sarah watches from the couch, wrapped in a blanket despite the summer heat. She's made tea for everyone, proper Queensland hospitality, even in the face of supernatural investigation. The 3 cups sit steaming on the coffee table. How do you do this? Sarah asks, breaking the concentrated silence. Stay calm, knowing what might happen. Mara opens her eyes, returning from wherever her mind had gone. Practice, experience, and honestly, a fair amount of denial. If I thought too hard about what we're actually doing, I'd probably never leave the office. But you do leave the office, you seek this out. Because someone has to, Mara sits down beside Sarah. People like you need help. And the traditional authorities, police, psychiatrists, even most religious leaders, they can't provide it. Either they don't believe or they don't know how to help. So we do what we can. Are you scared? Sarah's voice is small. Of whatever's in my house? Mara considers the question carefully. Yes and no. I'm cautious, respectful, but I've learned that most entities aren't actively malicious. They're confused or trapped or trying to communicate something important. Fear is natural, but it's not usually helpful. What about him? Sarah nods toward Elias, focused intently on his screens. Does he get scared? Elias? He'd never admit it if he was, but I've seen him face things that would make most people run screaming, and he just gets quieter, more focused. It's like fear makes him sharper instead of clouding his judgment. In the dining room, Elias calls out, Mara, can you do a baseline EMF sweep of the hallway? I want to compare it to what we measured this afternoon. On it, Mara stands, retrieving her EMF meter from the equipment case. She moves into the hallway, device held at arm's length. The meter reads normal at first, baseline residential levels. But as she approaches Sarah's bedroom door, the needle begins to climb. Getting elevated readings, she reports, similar to this afternoon, but slightly higher. Whatever's generating the field, it's getting stronger as we approach the active time. Noted, Elias says, making a note on his laptop. Take readings every 30 minutes. I want to see if there's a correlation between the increasing field strength and the time of manifestation. Barley lies on his dog bed near the equipment cases, but he's not sleeping. His eyes are open, tracking every movement. Every so often, his gaze fixes on the hallway and a soft whine escapes his throat. The dog knows something is coming. They all know something is coming. The question is what? Time passes slowly. Elias monitors the camera feeds, watching for any anomalies, shadows that shouldn't be there, movements in empty rooms, the telltale orbs that sometimes appear on infrared cameras. Nothing yet. Everything remains normal. 11:15 p.m, Mara conducts another EMF sweep. The readings are creeping higher. 11:42 p.m. Sarah makes another pot of tea. Her hands shake slightly as she pours. Mara sits with her, talking quietly about nothing important, just conversation to fill the waiting. 12:03 a.m. The house settles. Timber creaks as it always does when temperatures change between day and night. Normal sounds. Expected sounds. Barley stands, shakes himself, and moves to sit directly in front of the hallway entrance. His posture is alert, watchful. Barley's positioning himself, Elias observes. He knows the timeline as well as we do. 12:30 a.m. Mara's EMF sweep shows continued increase in the hallway readings. The bedroom door is now generating a field strong enough to make the meter needle dance erratically. Approaching 3 times baseline, she reports. Whatever's generating this, it's building towards something. 12:58 a.m. Sarah paces. She can't sit still anymore. The approaching hour weighs on her like physical pressure. Maybe it won't happen tonight, she says. Maybe because you're here, it'll stay away. Possible, Elias says, though his tone suggests he doesn't believe it. Some phenomena are affected by observation. The act of watching can change the behavior. But you don't think that'll happen here? No. This entity, if that's what it is, has been consistent for 3 weeks. It's established a pattern. I don't think our presence will deter it. 1:23 a.m. The temperature in the house begins to drop. It's subtle at first, just a degree or two, but the thermal camera in Sarah's bedroom is registering the change. Temperature declining in the bedroom, Elias reports, dropping approximately 1 degree every 5 minutes. That's not the air conditioning, Sarah asks. Your AC isn't running. This is localized to the bedroom. The rest of the house is maintaining normal temperature. 1:47 a.m. The temperature in the bedroom has dropped 8 degrees. Cold enough now that Elias can see his breath in the thermal camera's field of view. Barley stands, moving closer to the hallway entrance. His hackles begin to rise. He's picking up something, Mara says quietly. 2:11 a.m. 1 hour to go. The EMF readings in the hallway have spiked to 5 times baseline. The meter can barely keep up with the fluctuations. The needle swings wildly between ranges. Sarah sits very still on the couch now, all nervous energy drained away, replaced by a kind of resigned determination. How much longer? An hour, Elias says. Maybe less if it manifests early. It won't. Sarah's voice is flat, certain. It's always exactly 3:11. Not a minute before, not a minute after. Whatever it is, it's precise. 2:34 a.m. The house has gone silent. Even the normal nighttime sounds, cicadas outside, the hum of the refrigerator, distant traffic, seem muted, as if the world is holding its breath. Elias switches one of the cameras to full spectrum mode, capturing wavelengths beyond visible light. The view shifts, showing the bedroom in shades of purple and green. Something moves in the corner of the frame, just a flicker, a shadow where no shadow should be. "Did you see that?" he asks sharply. Mara moves to look over his shoulder at the screen. "Where?" "Corner of the room. Near the window there was..." He rewinds the footage, plays it frame by frame. "There. A dark shape, visible only in the ultraviolet spectrum, present for exactly 3 frames before vanishing. Something's manifesting," Elias says. "Getting ready for 3:11? 2:48 a.m. 23 minutes. The temperature in Sarah's bedroom has dropped to 18 degrees Celsius, nearly 15 degrees below the rest of the house. Frost begins to form on the inside of the window. In Queensland, in summer. Sarah sees the thermal camera readings on Elias's screen. "Jesus Christ," she whispers. 3 a.m. 11 minutes, Barley begins to pace, back and forth in front of the hallway entrance. His whining grows louder, more distressed. This is the closest Elias has ever seen the bloodhound to actual fear. "Easy, boy," he soothes. "You're okay. We've got you." But Barley doesn't settle. Something is coming, and he knows it. 3:05 a.m. 6 minutes. The EMF meters all begin screaming. Not literally, they're silent devices, but the needles are pinned at maximum, unable to register the full intensity of the electromagnetic field now saturating the hallway. Every hair on Elias's arms stands up. Static electricity fills the air. Mara pulls out her crystal pendant, holding it between both palms. Her lips move in a silent incantation, protection, grounding, centering. 3:08 a.m. 3 minutes. The lights in the house flicker. Once, twice. All the equipment remains running. They've got battery backups on everything, but the overhead lights dim and brighten erratically. Sarah stands, moving to stand between Elias and Mara, drawing strength from their presence. 3:10 a.m. 1 minute. The temperature in the bedroom hits 12 degrees Celsius. Impossible cold. The thermal camera shows the entire room glowing blue, cold spots everywhere now, not just the corner. And then, on the full spectrum camera, they see it. A shape taking form in the hallway outside Sarah's bedroom door, humanoid but indistinct, made of fog or smoke or something that exists in the spaces between solid matter. It coalesces slowly, drawing darkness from the air itself. "Oh my God," Sarah breathes. "Is that..." "Everyone stay calm," Elias says, though his own pulse is racing. "Cameras are recording, we're getting this." The entity, for lack of a better word, continues to solidify, not becoming truly physical, but more present, more real. It moves toward the bedroom door, gliding rather than walking. 3:11 a.m. Knock, knock, knock. 3 solid raps on Sarah's bedroom door, loud enough that everyone in the house hears them clearly, loud enough that the audio recorders spike, capturing the sound with perfect clarity. Sarah gasps, grabbing Mara's arm. Barley begins barking, deep, baying howls that echo through the house. He's not aggressive, he hasn't moved to attack, but he's vocal, announcing the presence of something that shouldn't be there. The entity remains visible on the full spectrum camera, standing outside the bedroom door, waiting. "It's waiting for a response," Mara says. "Sarah, it's waiting for you." No, I'm not going near that door." "You don't have to." Elias stands, picks up one of the voice recorders. "But I am." "Crowe," Mara starts. "We came here to investigate, to make contact if possible. Well, here's our chance." He moves toward the hallway, voice recorder in one hand, EMF meter in the other. Every instinct screams at him to stay back, to maintain a safe distance. But he's been doing this too long to listen to instinct over reason. He enters the hallway. The temperature drop hits him immediately. It's like walking into a freezer. His breath puffs out in white clouds. The air itself feels thick, resistant. as if he's pushing through something denser than oxygen. The entity is there. He can't see it with his naked eyes, but he can feel it. A presence, massive and impossible, occupying the space in front of Sarah's bedroom door. "Hello," Elias says, voice steady. "My name is Elias Crowe. We're here to help. Can you communicate with us?" Silence. The EMF meter in his hand is useless now. The needle is pinned so far to the right it might break. "Are you trying to reach Sarah? Are you trying to tell her something?" Still nothing. Then movement on the EMF meter. The needle begins to pulse. Down, up, down, up. A rhythm, deliberate. "I'm seeing a pattern on the EMF readings," Elias calls back to Mara. "It's responding." He holds up the voice recorder. "If you can hear me, can you make a sound? A knock? A word? Anything?" The hallway grows even colder. Frost forms on the walls, on the floor, on Elias's hair and eyelashes, and then from the voice recorder in his hand, a sound, not a knock, a voice, faint, barely audible, filtered through layers of static and distance. Lee, as his name. The entity just said his name. Every muscle in his body locks up. Time seems to stop. In all his years of investigation, across dozens of cases, he has never heard an entity speak his name directly. "What did you say?" he asks, though his voice comes out barely above a whisper. "Elias Crowe." It knows him. Not just his first name, his full name. How? "Who are you?" he demands. "How do you know my name?" Coming through what? Coming through where? The entity on the full spectrum camera begins to break apart. The fog-like substance dissipating, spreading through the hallway like smoke in wind. "Wait, don't go, talk to me." But it's fading. The temperature begins to rise. The EMF readings start to decline. The moment of manifestation is ending. In the last seconds before it vanishes completely, the voice recorder captures one more phrase. The veil is thinning. Then it's gone. The hallway returns to normal temperature. The EMF readings drop to baseline. The frost on the walls and floor begins to melt, leaving wet patches behind. Elias stands alone in the hallway, voice recorder still held out, heart pounding so hard he can feel it in his throat. What the hell just happened? He turns back to the living room. Sarah and Mara are both staring at him, faces pale in the dim light. "Did you hear that?" he asks. "Did the voice come through clearly enough?" "We heard it," Mara confirms. Her voice shakes slightly. "Crowe, it knew your name. How did it know your name?" "I don't know." "What did it mean about the veil?" "I don't know." Barley has stopped barking. The bloodhound approaches Elias cautiously, sniffing him thoroughly. After a moment, the dog seems satisfied that his human is still himself, not possessed or altered, and allows himself to be petted. Sarah finally finds her voice. "Is it over? Is it gone?" "For tonight," Elias says. "Based on your previous experiences, it shouldn't return until tomorrow at 3:11 a.m. "But why?" Sarah struggles to articulate her thoughts. "Why does it know you? Why did it say your name?" "I have no idea. I've never investigated this location before. I've never encountered this entity. There's no reason it should know me." Unless... A thought strikes him, cold and unwelcome. Unless this isn't random. Unless he was meant to be here, meant to investigate this case. Unless something has been guiding him toward this moment. He pushes the thought away. Later. He'll process it later. Right now they have evidence to review, data to analyse. "Let's pack up," he says. "We got what we came for. Multiple forms of documentation, clear EVP capture, visual confirmation on full spectrum cameras. This is solid." They work in silence, breaking down the equipment, coiling cables, packing cases. The house slowly returns to normal, lights steady, temperature even, no sense of presence watching from dark corners. By 4:30 a.m, they're ready to leave. Sarah walks them to the door. She still looks shaken, but there's something else in her expression too. Relief, maybe? Or hope? What happens now, she asks. We review everything we captured tonight, Elias explains, analyse the data, try to understand what we're dealing with, then we'll contact you with our findings and recommendations. Will it stop? Will this end? Elias wants to lie, wants to tell her, yes, everything will be fine now, but he can't. I don't know, he says honestly, but we're going to figure out what's happening here and do everything we can to help you. Sarah nods. It's not the answer she wanted, but it's the truth, and sometimes that's all you can offer. They load the equipment into the SUV. The sky is beginning to lighten in the east, the first hints of dawn approaching. Brisbane will wake soon, unaware that 3 people and a bloodhound just spent the night communicating with something that shouldn't exist. As they pull away from Lock Street, Elias catches Mara watching him in the dim light. What? He asks. That thing knew your name, Crowe. That's not normal. Even for us, that's not normal. I know. And that phrase, the veil is thinning. You know what that could mean, right? I have theories. Want to share them? Not yet. Not until I've reviewed the evidence and done more research. Crowe, Mara, please, just give me some time to process this. She studies his face in the dashboard light, then nods. Okay, but we will talk about this soon. I know. In the back seat, Barley has already fallen asleep, exhausted from the night's activity. They drive back to the office as Brisbane wakes around them, delivery trucks making morning rounds, early commuters heading to work, the city resuming its normal rhythms, but nothing feels normal anymore. Something knows Elias's name, something is coming through, and the veil, whatever that means, is thinning. Interior Paranormal Studies and Investigations office, West End, dawn. The office is bathed in the grey light of early morning. Elias sits at the main desk, headphones on, listening to the voice recordings from the night's investigation for the 5th time. On the computer screen in front of him, an audio waveform displays the captured EVP. He's isolated the section where the entity spoke his name, cleaning up the background noise, amplifying the frequencies where the voice comes through most clearly. Elias, Crowe, he plays it again. Elias, Crowe, and again. Each time it sends a chill down his spine. Mara is passed out on the couch, wrapped in a throw blanket, mouth slightly open, snoring softly. After they'd returned to the office, they'd both tried to stay awake to begin the initial evidence review, but exhaustion won. She'd made it to about 6 a.m. before her body shut down. Elias should sleep too. He knows this. His eyes burn with fatigue, his muscles ache, his head pounds with the beginning of a caffeine withdrawal headache. But he can't stop working, can't stop trying to understand. He pulls up the full spectrum camera footage, scrubbing through to the moment of manifestation. There, the entity coalescing in the hallway. Frame by frame, he watches it take shape. Human-ish, 2 arms, 2 legs, a head. But the proportions are wrong. Too tall, too thin. Limbs that bend at angles that shouldn't be possible. And something else. In the brief moments before it fully manifests, before the fog-like substance solidifies, there's something visible underneath, a structure, almost like Elias leans closer to the screen, squinting, almost like a network, threads or filaments connecting different parts of the entity's form, glowing faintly in the UV spectrum. He's never seen anything like it. He takes screenshots, makes notes, flags the footage for more detailed analysis later. His phone buzzes. Text message. He glances at it, expecting something mundane, spam probably, or a notification from a food delivery app, but it's from an unknown number. You're looking in the wrong place. The chapel was just the beginning. Look for the others. Elias stares at the message, pulse quickening. Who is this? How do they know about the chapel? How do they know he's investigating anything at all? He types back, who is this? What others? 3 dots appear, indicating the sender is typing, then disappear, then appear again. Finally, someone who knows what's coming. The veil is thinning, Elias, and you're part of it, whether you want to be or not. The dots disappear. No more messages come through. Elias tries to call the number. It rings once, then disconnects. When he tries again, an automated message informs him the number is no longer in service. What the hell, he mutters. He runs a reverse lookup on the number. Nothing. It's not registered to any carrier he can find, either a burner phone or something more sophisticated. The message sits on his screen, glowing faintly in the dim office light. You're part of it, whether you want to be or not. Elias stands, paces to the corkboard, the map of Paddington, the circle of pins, the notes about the chapel fire in 1873. If the chapel was just the beginning, what was the end? Or what is the end if it hasn't happened yet? And what did the mysterious texter mean by the others? Other entities, other locations, other investigators? He adds a new note to the board. Unknown contact. Knows about Vale and Chapel. Warned about the others. The pieces are scattered across the board now. The chapel, the houses on Lock Street, the entity that knows his name, the thinning veil, the mysterious warning. Somewhere in this chaos is a pattern, a story, an explanation. He just has to find it. Behind him, Mara stirs on the couch. What time is it? She mumbles, not quite awake. 7:30? Morning? Yep. Did you sleep? Not yet. Crowe. She pushes herself upright, rubbing her eyes. You need rest. You can't function without sleep. I got a strange text message. He shows her his phone. Mara reads it, frowning. Who sent this? Don't know. Number's dead now. The others? What others? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Wara stands, stretches, joints popping. She joins him at the corkboard, studying the accumulated information with fresh eyes. Okay, she says after a moment. Let's approach this methodically. We know the chapel burned in 1873. We know there were reports of strange occurrences afterward. And we know that 150 years later, houses built on that land are experiencing paranormal activity. Agreed. So the question is, what's the connection between then and now? What woke this up after all this time? Or maybe it was never asleep, Elias counters. Maybe there have been incidents throughout the years that we don't know about, reports that were dismissed, covered up, or simply lost to time. Then we need to find those reports, newspaper archives, historical records, property records. If houses on Lock Street have been experiencing this for decades, there should be some paper trail. I'll start with property records, Elias says. See if any of the houses have had unusual numbers of tenants, people moving in and out quickly, which might indicate ongoing issues. And I'll dive into local folklore, Mara adds. Sometimes the truth gets preserved in ghost stories, even if nobody takes them seriously. If people have been experiencing paranormal activity in Paddington for years, there might be urban legends or local tales that reference it. They're about to begin when Elias's phone rings, actual voice call this time from a known number. Sarah Brightwell. He answers, Sarah, is everything okay? Her voice is shaky. Something happened after you left. I thought it would be over for the night, but what happened? I went to bed. Around 5 a.m. I was exhausted. I fell asleep immediately, but at 7:11 a.m., exactly 4 hours after it knocked, I woke up to the sound again. 3 knocks, but not on my bedroom door this time. Where? The front door. Crowe, something knocked on my front door. I looked through the peephole, and there was nothing there. But when I opened the door, there was something on the porch. Elias's grip tightens on the phone. What was on the porch? A photograph? Old, faded. Looks like it's from the 1800s. It shows a building, a church or chapel, I think. And written on the back in old-fashioned handwriting, St. Augustine's, 1873. Elias and Mara exchange a sharp look. Sarah, don't touch that photograph. Don't go near it. We're coming back right now. Okay, I'll wait for you. He ends the call, already moving toward the equipment cases. We're going back to Lock Street. What happened? The entity left a message, a physical message, a photograph of St. Augustine's chapel from 1873. Jesus Christ. Crowe, that means whatever's haunting Sarah's house isn't just aware of the chapel's history. It wants us to know about it. It's actively trying to communicate. Or guide us. Elias agrees. They're both moving now, grabbing equipment, cameras, evidence collection supplies. Barley, sensing the renewed urgency, stands and stretches, ready to go again, despite the early hour. This changes everything, Mara says. If the entity is capable of physical manifestation beyond just knocking and temperature changes, if it can transport objects, leave messages, we're dealing with something much more powerful than a residual haunting. I know. And if it specifically wants us to investigate the chapel, that means we're already part of whatever's happening, Elias finishes. Just like the text message said, whether we want to be or not. They load into the SUV. The morning sun is bright now, burning away the last of the night's shadows. Brisbane is fully awake, traffic building on the roads, but Elias feels like he's driving deeper into darkness. Whatever they're about to find on Sarah Brightwell's porch, whatever truth the chapel holds, it's going to change the nature of their investigation and possibly change everything they think they know about the paranormal. The veil is thinning, and they're about to find out what's on the other side. XG Sarah Brightwell's house, Lock Street, morning. The SUV pulls up to number 47. The street looks different in daylight, peaceful, ordinary, almost aggressively normal. A neighbour waters her garden 2 houses down. A jogger passes by with a border collie. Life continues, oblivious to the supernatural drama unfolding behind closed doors. Sarah is waiting on the porch, wrapped in a cardigan despite the growing warmth of the day. Her eyes are red-rimmed from lack of sleep and probably tears. When she sees them pull up, relief floods her face. Elias, Mara and Barley approach the house quickly. Elias carries a black equipment case, evidence collection supplies, including gloves, evidence bags, and a portable UV light for examining the photograph. Show us, he says without preamble. Sarah points to a spot on the porch, about 3 feet from the front door. There, I didn't touch it. I did exactly what you said. The photograph lies face up on the weathered boards of the porch. Even from a distance, Elias can see it's old. The paper has that sepia tone unique to 19th century photography, edges curled with age. He sets down the equipment case, pulls on a pair of nitrile gloves, and carefully picks up the photograph by the corners. The image shows a small chapel, Gothic Revival architecture, with a pointed steeple and arched windows. The quality is grainy, the way all photographs from that era appear, but the detail is clear enough. A sign visible in the foreground reads, St. Augustine's Chapel. 6 people stand in front of the building, men and women in period clothing, formal poses, unsmiling faces. the way people always looked in old photographs before cameras were fast enough to capture movement or natural expressions. Elias turns the photograph over carefully. Written on the back in faded brown ink is a single line, St. Augustine's, 1873. And below that, in different handwriting, fresher, darker ink, another line, 7 souls, 7 doors. That wasn't there before, Sarah says, her voice tight with fear. When I first picked it up before I called you, the back only had the date. That second line just appeared while I was looking at it. The ink just materialized on the paper. Mara leans in to examine the photograph more closely. The second line is definitely newer. You can see the ink is still slightly wet in places. But how? Sarah asks. How is that possible? The photo was just sitting there. Nothing touched it. The same way it appeared on your porch in the first place, Elias says. Whatever entity we're dealing with has the ability to manipulate physical matter, at least on a small scale. He pulls out his phone, takes multiple photos of both sides of the photograph, then he carefully slides it into a clear evidence bag, sealing it. 7 souls, 7 doors, Mara reads aloud. What does that mean? I don't know yet, but look at the people in the photograph. Elias holds it up to the morning light, examining the figures more closely. Count them. Mara does. 7. 7 people standing in front of the chapel. So 7 souls might refer to these specific individuals, Elias theorizes. People associated with St. Augustine's Chapel in 1873, the year it burned down. And 7 doors, Sarah asks. Houses, maybe, Mara suggests. 7 houses on Lock Street, 7 locations connected to the haunting. Possibly. Elias makes notes on his phone, documenting everything. Sarah, when exactly did you find this? I woke up at 7:11 a.m. to the knocking, looked through the peephole, saw nothing, opened the door, and the photograph was there. I called you about 5 minutes later. And the second line of text appeared between when you found it and when you called us? Yes, I was sitting inside, looking at it, trying to decide if I should call you. I set it down on the coffee table for a moment, and when I looked again, the new writing was there. Active manifestation. The entity is engaging with them in real time, leaving clues, guiding them towards something. But toward what? Barley has been conducting his own investigation of the porch. The bloodhound sniffs every corner, every board, working his way methodically across the space. When he reaches the spot where the photograph was lying, he stops, sits, and stares intently at that exact location. He's got something, Elias says. They watch as Barley stands again, moves to the edge of the porch, and looks out toward the street. His head tracks from left to right, as if following the path of something invisible. Then he turns and walks down the porch steps, nose to the ground. He's tracking a scent, Mara realizes. Whatever left the photograph, Barley can smell its path. They follow Barley down the street. The dog moves with purpose, occasionally stopping to verify the scent, then continuing on. Neighbours who are now emerging to start their Saturday morning routines eye the group curiously. 3 adults and a bloodhound walking with obvious purpose down the residential street. Barley passes number 49, number 51, where the single mother reported knocking sounds. The dog pauses here briefly, whines, then continues on. He's reacting to the house, Mara observes. He smells whatever's in there too. They continue walking. Number 53, 55. At the end of the block, Barley turns right onto the cross street. The scent trail leads them 2 more blocks, then left, then through a small park with a children's playground. Barley ignores the curious ducks in the pond, stays focused on his trail. They emerge from the park onto another street. Older houses here, some in need of repair. And at the corner, surrounded by a chain link fence, topped with barbed wire, sits a vacant lot, overgrown with weeds, cracked concrete foundation visible in places, graffiti tags on a few remaining brick structures that might have been part of a basement or foundation. A weathered sign attached to the fence reads, Heritage Site, St. Augustine's Chapel, 1860 to 1873, Paddington Historical Society. Barley sits down directly in front of the gate, looks back at Elias and barks once. He found it, Elias says quietly. The entity's trail leads from this spot, the chapel ruins, directly to Sarah's porch. Mara approaches the fence, peering through at the vacant lot beyond. So whatever's haunting Lock Street originates here, from the chapel grounds, or from whatever happened here in 1873, Elias corrects. He photographs the site from multiple angles, the vacant lot, the heritage sign, the surrounding area, all documentation for later analysis. Sarah hugs herself, looking at the ruins with a mixture of fear and fascination. I've lived in Paddington for 3 years. I've walked past this lot dozens of times and never really thought about it. Just another empty lot in an old neighbourhood. That's how these places hide, Mara says softly. In plain sight. People see them every day and never think twice, until something wakes up, until the past reaches out. Elias pulls out his EMF meter, takes a reading through the fence. The needle immediately spikes, elevated electromagnetic field, similar in intensity to what they measured in Sarah's bedroom. There's significant paranormal energy here, he reports. Whatever happened in 1873 left a mark on this place, a strong one. So what do we do? Sarah asks. If the haunting in my house is connected to this place, how do we stop it? First, we need to understand what actually happened here, Elias says. The official record says the chapel burned in an accident, but given everything we're experiencing, I'm betting the truth is more complicated. How do we find out? Research, historical archives, newspaper records, church documents, if they still exist. We need to identify the 7 people in this photograph and find out what their connection was to the chapel fire. And then we figure out what they want, why they're reaching out after 150 years, what message they're trying to deliver. Mara has been studying the vacant lot with a distant expression, that look she gets when she's sensing something beyond the physical. They're still here, she says quietly. The 7 souls, trapped in this place, unable to move on. Can you tell anything else? Elias asks. She closes her eyes, reaching out with whatever psychic sense she possesses. Pain, intense pain, and betrayal? No, that's not quite right. Something closer to abandonment. They were left behind, forgotten. By who? I don't know, it's not clear. But they've been here for so long, Crowe, waiting, hoping someone would listen. And now they're finally reaching out, Elias concludes, using whatever energy they can gather to manifest, to leave messages, to get our attention. But why now? Sarah asks. If they've been here for 150 years, why start haunting houses just a few weeks ago? It's the key question, the one Elias has been wrestling with since he first noticed the pattern of reports from Paddington. Something's changed, he says slowly, thinking it through. Something in the environment or the spiritual landscape or the veil, whatever that means. Something has made it possible for these entities to become active again. The veil is thinning, Mara quotes from last night's EVP. That's what it said. The barrier between their world and ours is weakening. But why? No one has an answer. They stand in silence for a moment, staring at the vacant lot that was once St. Augustine's Chapel, trying to understand the forces at work, trying to grasp the scope of what they're dealing with. Barley breaks the moment by standing and trotting back the way they came. Trail completed. Mission accomplished. Time for breakfast. We should get back, as Elias says. We have a lot of research ahead of us. They walk back through Paddington's quiet streets. The morning is fully established now. Neighbours mowing lawns, washing cars, living their normal weekend lives. But Elias can't shake the feeling that something fundamental has shifted. The investigation that started as a simple haunting, woman reports knocking on her door, has expanded into something far more complex. 7 souls trapped for over a century, a thinning veil between worlds, an entity that knows his name, mysterious text messages warning of things to come. And somewhere in all of this, a truth waiting to be uncovered, a truth about St. Augustine's Chapel, and possibly a truth about Elias Crowe himself. Interior Paranormal Studies and Investigations Office, West End, afternoon. The office has transformed into a research bunker. Every available surface is covered with documents, printouts from historical databases, newspaper archives, property records, church documents obtained from the Brisbane Diocese. 2 laptops display multiple browser tabs. A large sheet of butcher paper has been taped to the wall next to the corkboard, covered in a hand-drawn timeline of events related to St. Augustine's Chapel. Elias sits at the main desk, eyes bloodshot from staring at screens, surrounded by empty coffee cups. He's been at this for 6 hours straight, barely pausing to eat the sandwich Mara forced on him an hour ago. Mara works from her corner, cross-referencing names from church records with census data and death certificates. She's changed into comfortable clothes, leggings and an oversized sweater, and has her hair piled on top of her head in a chaotic bun. Barley, exhausted from the morning's adventure, sleeps soundly on his bed. "Okay," Mara says, breaking the focused silence. "I think I've identified 6 of the 7 people in the photograph." Elias looks up. 6 out of 7? The 7th person is too far to the side, face partially obscured. "But the other 6? I've got names." She reads from her notes. Father Thomas Whitmore. He was the priest assigned to St. Augustine's in 1873. Eleanor Sutton, listed as the housekeeper. James and Margaret Chen, Chinese immigrants who are members of the congregation. Samuel Morrison, a local shopkeeper who donated funds for the chapel's maintenance. And a woman named Victoria Hale, no occupation listed. What happened to them? That's where it gets interesting. Mara stands, stretches, joints popping. According to death records, all 6 of them died on the same day, July 12, 1873. Elias goes very still. The same day the chapel burned. Exactly. Official cause of death for all of them, smoke inhalation and burns sustained in the fire. So they died in the fire, all 6 of them, together. But here's the thing. The newspaper accounts I found said the chapel was believed to be empty when the fire started. So how did 6 people end up dead inside? Elias stands, moves to the timeline on the wall. He adds the names, the date of death, marking it with red marker. Either the initial reports were wrong and people knew there were victims in the fire, or he trails off thinking, or the deaths were covered up, Mara finishes, made to look like an accident when it was something else. We need to find more detailed accounts, coroner's reports if they still exist, witness statements, anything that might tell us what actually happened that night. Already on it, I've got a contact at the Queensland State Archives who can pull historical death records. Should hear back from him by Monday. That's 2 days away. I know, but it's the weekend. We work with what we've got. Elias returns to his laptop, pulling up the scan of the photograph again. He zooms in on each face, studying features that are over 150 years old. These people died together in a fire, and their souls apparently have been trapped ever since, unable to move on, waiting for what? To be heard, to be remembered, to have their story told. 7 souls, 7 doors, he mutters, repeating the phrase from the photograph. I've been thinking about that, Mara says. What if it's literal? 7 souls connected to the chapel fire, and 7 doors, 7 houses on Lock Street experiencing paranormal activity? We've only identified 3 houses so far. Sarah's at 47, the couple at 39, the family at 51. So there might be 4 more we don't know about yet, people who haven't reported the activity or who attributed it to other causes. Elias pulls up his map of Lock Street, studies the layout. If there are 7 houses, they'd likely be distributed along the length of the street, possibly corresponding to the location of the original chapel grounds. He overlays a historical map from 1873 onto the modern street map. The chapel's footprint was larger than the current vacant lot. It extended across what is now part of Lock Street itself. Several houses sit directly on top of what used to be chapel grounds. Look at this, he says, pointing to the screen. Numbers 39, 41, 47, 51, 53, 57, and 59 all sit on or adjacent to the original chapel property. 7 houses, Mara breathes. 7 souls, 7 doors. If this pattern holds, all 7 of those houses should be experiencing paranormal activity. We need to verify that. How? We can't exactly go door to door asking if people are being haunted. No, but we can search for reports, council complaints about strange noises, police calls about disturbances, posts on local social media groups. If these houses are all active, there should be traces. They dive back into research with renewed focus. Mara searches Facebook groups for Paddington residents, looking for mentions of unexplained phenomena. Elias combs through council records and police logs. An hour later, they've found evidence for 2 more houses. Number 53, a noise complaint filed 2 weeks ago about sounds coming from the walls, like someone tapping or knocking. Inspectors found no evidence of pests or structural issues. Number 57, a post on a Paddington community Facebook group from 3 weeks ago. Has anyone else in the neighbourhood been experiencing weird electrical issues? Lights flickering, devices turning on and off? Just me? Okay then. That's 5 confirmed, Elias says. 2 more to go. Should we visit these locations? Talk to the residents? Not yet. Let's gather as much information as we can first. Build a complete picture before we start approaching people. Mara nods, returns to her research, but after a moment she speaks again. Crowe, can I ask you something? Yeah. Last night, when the entity spoke your name, that was a significant moment. More significant than you've admitted. Elias's hand still on the keyboard. What makes you say that? Because I know you, and I could see your face when it happened. You weren't just surprised or startled. You were scared. He doesn't respond immediately. How does he explain the complexity of what he felt in that moment? The terror, yes, but also the recognition. The sense that something he'd been running from his entire adult life had finally caught up with him. I've been investigating the paranormal for 12 years, he says finally. Hundreds of cases, thousands of hours of evidence review. And in all that time, I've never had an entity address me directly, not by name, not with that level of specificity. What do you think it means? I don't know. Maybe nothing. Maybe the entity picked up my name from Sarah's thoughts or from the equipment we had labelled. Maybe it's just coincidence. You don't believe in coincidence? No, I don't. Mara moves to sit on the edge of his desk. So if it's not coincidence, what is it? Elias finally meets her eyes. Connection. Somehow, whatever's haunting Sarah's house, whatever came through last night, has a connection to me personally, and I have no idea what that connection might be. Could it be related to your childhood experience? The thing you saw when you were 7? He's told Mara a little about that night. Not much, he doesn't like talking about it. But enough for her to know it's the reason he does this work. The reason he needs to understand the paranormal. Maybe. I've always assumed that entity was localized to my childhood home. But what if I was wrong? What if it followed me? Or what if it's part of something larger? Like the veil? Like the veil, he agrees. The computer chimes. New email. Elias glances at the screen, expecting spam or a client inquiry, but the sender field makes his blood run cold. From the seventh soul, no subject line. Elias clicks it open with a sense of dread. The body of the email contains a single sentence. You were always meant to find us, Elias Crowe. The question is, are you ready to remember why? Below the text is an attached image file. Elias downloads it, opens it. It's a photograph. Modern digital photo, not historical. It shows a young boy, maybe 6 or 7 years old, standing in a bedroom, wearing pajamas, looking at the camera with wide, frightened eyes. The boy is Elias. He recognizes the bedroom immediately, his childhood home. The exact room where he saw the entity when he was 7 years old. But he never allowed photographs to be taken of that room after that night. He insisted his parents remove all cameras, all recording devices. The trauma was too fresh, too raw. So who took this photo and when? Mara leans over to see the screen, gasps. Crowe, is that you? Yes. When was this taken? I don't know. It shouldn't exist. Trace the email, find out who sent it. Elias is already working on it, pulling up the email headers, tracking the routing information, but as he expects, the trail goes cold immediately, routed through multiple anonymous servers. Source IP untraceable. Whoever sent this knows how to hide. This is wrong, he says, voice tight. This is all wrong. We're investigating a haunting from 1873. There's no connection to my childhood, no reason for... His phone rings. Unknown number. Against his better judgment, he answers. Hello? Static on the line. Deep, churning static like white noise on an old television. Then faintly, barely audible. Remember, Elias. Remember what you saw. Remember what you promised. Who is this? What do you want? The veil is thinning, and you're the door. The line goes dead. Elias slowly lowers the phone, staring at it like it might bite him. What did they say? Mara demands. That I'm the door, that the veil is thinning and I'm somehow involved. A door? To what? I don't know. His voice comes out sharper than intended. Barley lifts his head from the dog bed, whines in concern. Elias takes a breath, forcing himself to calm down. Losing control won't help anyone. I'm sorry, he says. This is just a lot. No kidding. Mara's expression is equal parts concern and determination. But we're going to figure this out. Together. Whatever's happening, whatever connection you have to this case, we'll face it together. You keep saying that. But what if this puts you in danger? What if my involvement makes things worse? Then we deal with it. Crowe, I signed up for this work knowing it was dangerous, knowing there would be cases that challenged everything I believe and understand. This is one of those cases, and I'm not backing down. He wants to argue, wants to tell her to walk away, to protect herself, to let him handle this alone. But he knows her well enough to know she won't. Okay, he says, we see it through. But carefully, whoever or whatever is contacting me, they're playing a game, leaving breadcrumbs, revealing information slowly. We need to stay ahead of them. Agreed. So what's our next move? Elias looks at the timeline on the wall. The photograph of St. Augustine's Chapel, the names of the 6 people who died in the fire, the map showing 7 houses on Lock Street, and now added to the puzzle, his own childhood, his own history, his own connection to whatever's happening. We need to identify the seventh person in the photograph, he decides. 6 souls we know, 1 still unknown, and we need to figure out exactly what happened the night of July 12th, 1873. What really happened in that chapel? And how do we do that if the records are incomplete or deliberately falsified? We find someone who was there. Mara's eyes widen. You mean? I mean, we conduct a seance at the chapel site. We make direct contact with the 7 souls and ask them to tell us their story. That's dangerous, Crowe. Really dangerous. We don't know what we're dealing with. If there's something malevolent behind this, then we'll take precautions, protections, boundaries, emergency procedures. But we need answers, Mara. Real answers, not just fragments pieced together from incomplete records. When? Tonight. The sooner we understand what's happening, the sooner we can help Sarah and the other residents of Lock Street. And maybe we figure out why I'm involved in all of this. Mara is quiet for a long moment, weighing the risks. Finally, she nods. Okay, tonight. But we do this properly. Full ritual protection, sacred space, everything by the book. Agreed. They return to their preparations, but the atmosphere in the office has changed. This is no longer a standard investigation. This is personal. For Sarah Brightwell, whose house is haunted by souls that died 150 years ago. For the 7 people who perished in the chapel fire, whose story has been lost to time. And for Elias Crowe, who is about to confront the possibility that his entire life, his childhood trauma, his career investigating the paranormal, his presence in Brisbane at this exact moment might not be coincidence at all, might be part of a pattern that's been unfolding for longer than he's been alive. The veil is thinning, and tonight they're going to find out what that really means. XG St. Augustine's Chapel ruins. Night, darkness has fallen over Paddington. The streetlights cast pools of amber light at regular intervals, but between them shadows gather thick and impenetrable. The vacant lot that was once St. Augustine's Chapel sits in deeper darkness still, no streetlight nearby. The chain-link fence creates stark geometric patterns in the ambient light from surrounding houses. Elias parks the SUV on the side street adjacent to the lot. He kills the engine, and for a moment they all sit in silence, staring at the ruins through the windshield. Last chance to reconsider, Mara says, though her tone suggests she knows Elias won't take her up on it. We're doing this, he confirms. They exit the vehicle. The humid night air wraps around them immediately. In the distance, fruit bats call to each other as they begin their nightly feeding. A dog barks somewhere down the street. Normal sounds, comforting sounds. But Barley whines softly, looking toward the chapel ruins with visible reluctance. I know, boy, Elias says, stroking the bloodhound's head. I don't like it either, but we need answers. They've brought a significant amount of equipment tonight. In addition to their standard investigation gear, Mara has prepared materials for ritual protection. Salt, sage, blessed water, protective crystals, and a black mirror for scrying. Elias carries bolt cutters. We're breaking in? Mara asks as he approaches the gate. The gate's chained shut, no other access, and I'd rather not wait until Monday to apply for official permission from the Historical Society. Breaking and entering at a heritage site, pretty sure that's illegal. Add it to the list of questionable decisions we've made tonight. He positions the bolt cutters on the chain, applies pressure. The metal parts with a sharp snap that echoes too loudly in the quiet street. The gate swings open with a prolonged creak. They step through onto the grounds where St. Augustine's Chapel once stood. Immediately, the temperature drops. Not as extreme as the cold spots in Sarah's house, but noticeable. A chill that has nothing to do with weather and everything to do with the residual energy saturating this place. The EMF meters begin registering elevated readings before they've taken 3 steps into the lot. High ambient paranormal activity, Elias reports, watching the needle dance. This entire site is charged. Mara has her eyes closed, one hand extended, palm down, feeling the energy. There's so much here, so many layers, grief, pain, fear, but also hope? That doesn't make sense. Why hope? Because she opens her eyes, looking at Elias with an expression he can't quite read. Because we're here, because someone's finally listening. They navigate through the overgrown weeds and debris. The concrete foundation is broken in places, weeds pushing through cracks. Fragments of brick walls jut up at irregular intervals, all that remains of the original structure. Elias uses his flashlight to examine the ruins more closely. Scorch marks still visible on some of the bricks, 150 years later. Fire damage that time and weather haven't completely erased. They reach what appears to be the centre of where the chapel would have stood. The foundation here is more intact, showing the outline of what was likely the nave, the main hall where congregants would have gathered. Here, Elias decides, we'll set up here. Mara begins creating a protective circle. She walks the perimeter, pouring salt in a continuous line, speaking words in Latin, ancient protections against malevolent spirits. At the 4 cardinal points, she places crystals, clear quartz to the north, rose quartz to the south, amethyst to the east, obsidian to the west. Elias sets up cameras to document everything. Multiple angles, infrared and full spectrum. Voice recorders positioned around the circle. EMF meters on continuous monitoring. When the technical setup is complete, he joins Mara inside the protective circle. Barley reluctantly follows, clearly uncomfortable but unwilling to be separated from his humans. Mara has placed the black mirror in the center of the circle, positioned on a cloth embroidered with protective symbols. Candles flicker at the 4 cardinal points, their flames casting dancing shadows across the ruins. Ready? She asks. As I'll ever be. They sit cross-legged on the ground, facing each other across the black mirror. Barley lies between them, head on his paws, watching everything with worried eyes. Mara takes Elias's hands. Her palms are warm, despite the cold air. Remember, if anything feels wrong, if the energy turns hostile or the protections start to fail, we shut this down immediately. No heroics. Agreed. And Crowe, whatever we learn tonight, whatever we see or hear, we process it together afterward. You don't shoulder this alone, okay? She takes a deep breath, centering herself. When she speaks again, her voice has changed. Deeper, more resonant, carrying an authority that seems to come from somewhere ancient. We call upon the 7 souls of St. Augustine's chapel, we who stand in the place where you fell, we who seek to understand your story, we invite you to communicate with us. We mean you no harm, we come in peace and with respect. The temperature drops further. Frost begins to form on the ground around the salt circle. The candle flames flicker wildly, nearly extinguishing, then steady again. We know your names, Mara continues. Father Thomas Whitmore, Eleanor Sutton, James and Margaret Chen, Samuel Morrison, Victoria Hale, and the 7th, whose name we do not yet know. We honour your memory. We ask you to make yourselves known. The EMF meters all spike simultaneously, needles slamming to maximum. In the black mirror, something moves. Not a reflection, something else. Shapes coalescing in the dark glass, indistinct at first, then slowly resolving into forms. Figures, 7 of them, standing in a circle around a flickering light. Elias's breath catches. Mara, the mirror. I see it. The vision in the mirror becomes clearer. They're looking at the interior of the chapel as it once was. wooden pews, stained glass windows, an altar at the far end, and 7 people gathered in a circle in the centre of the nave, holding hands, chanting something in unison. "It's them," Elias whispers. "The 7 souls. This is a memory, something that happened before the fire." As they watch, the vision in the mirror shifts. The 7 people continue their ritual, but something else appears. Above their circle, a shimmer in the air, like heat distortion, but more deliberate, more purposeful. A doorway, not physical, not made of wood or metal, but an opening nonetheless, a tear in the fabric of reality itself. Through the opening, darkness spills. Not the absence of light, something more fundamental. A darkness that seems to swallow light, sound, thought itself. The 7 people in the vision don't run. They maintain their circle, their chanting growing louder, more desperate. They're trying to close the doorway, but they're failing. The darkness spreads, engulfing the chapel interior. The stained glass windows shatter. The wooden pews ignite spontaneously. Fire blooms everywhere at once, consuming everything. The 7 people remain in their circle until the very end, still chanting, still fighting, until the flames take them. The vision fades. The mirror returns to showing only darkness. Mara's hands are shaking. "Did you see that? Did you see what they were doing?" "They opened a doorway," Elias says, his mind racing to process what they just witnessed. The 7 of them. Some kind of ritual. They opened a passage between worlds. The veil, Mara realizes. That's what the veil is, the barrier between our reality and whatever's on the other side. And they tore it open. But why? Why would they do that? Before Mara can respond, a voice speaks from the darkness beyond their protective circle, not through the voice recorders, not a whisper of static, a real voice, clear as day, speaking directly to them, because we were asked to. They both spin toward the source of the voice. 7 figures stand outside the salt circle, translucent, glowing faintly with their own light. The same 7 people from the photograph, from the vision in the mirror. The 7 souls of St. Augustine's Chapel. Barley growls low in his throat but doesn't attack. He can sense these entities aren't hostile. One of the figures steps forward, an older man in priest's robes, face gaunt and sorrowful. Father Thomas Whitmore. "We were asked to open the veil," he says, his voice carrying the weight of a century and a half of regret. "Promised that great wisdom would flow through, that humanity would benefit from knowledge beyond our world." "Who asked you?" Elias demands. "Who made that promise?" "A man came to us," another figure speaks. A woman in period dress, Eleanor Sutton, the housekeeper. He said he represented a group of scholars studying the boundaries of reality. He had documents, theories, rituals from ancient times. He convinced Father Whitmore that opening a passage would bring enlightenment. But it didn't, a third voice, a young Chinese man, James Chen. It brought something else, something dark, something hungry. "We tried to close it," Margaret Chen adds, standing beside her husband. "When we realized our mistake, we tried to seal the passage, but we weren't strong enough. The darkness was already through, already spreading. So we made a choice," Father Whitmore continues. "We bound ourselves to this place, used our own souls as a seal, holding the veil closed, keeping the darkness on the other side." Elias feels ice forming in his chest. "You've been holding it closed for 150 years? The 7 of you?" "Yes, but we're weakening. Our energy is fading. The veil is beginning to thin again, and we can't hold it much longer." "That's why the hauntings started," Mara says, understanding flooding through her. "You're reaching out for help, trying to warn people about what's coming." "Exactly," Victoria Hale confirms. "Soon the veil will tear open again, And when it does, what we let through in 1873 will return, along with worse things, things that have been waiting on the other side for over a century. The sixth figure speaks, Samuel Morrison. 7 souls hold 7 doors, but the doors are failing. We need someone to take our place, someone strong enough to maintain the seal. And then the 7th figure steps forward, the one whose face was obscured in the photograph, the one they couldn't identify. Elias's entire world tilts because he recognizes this figure. It's impossible. It defies every law of time and space, but there's no mistaking it. The 7th soul is Elias himself, not as he is now, younger, maybe 7 years old, wearing the same pajamas from the photograph that was emailed to him earlier. The ghost of Elias as a child speaks, "You were always meant to be here, Elias, since the night you saw me in your bedroom when you were 7. Since the moment you touched the veil and survived, you're the 8th, the one who can replace us, the one who can hold the darkness back." No! Elias shakes his head violently. That's not possible. I'm alive. I'm right here. I can't be a ghost. You're not a ghost, Father Whitmore clarifies. Not yet, but you've walked between worlds, touched the veil, been marked by it. You have the ability to anchor yourself across both realities, to become a living seal. You're asking me to die, Elias says flatly. Not die, transform. Your body would remain alive, but your consciousness would split. Part of you here, part of you holding the veil closed. 7 souls plus 1, 8 anchors instead of 7. Strong enough to hold for another century. And if I refuse? The 7 souls exchange glances. The child Elias speaks again. Then the veil tears open completely. The darkness floods through. And everyone in Brisbane, in Australia, possibly the entire world, faces what we faced in 1873, but on a much larger scale. Mara's grip on Elias's hands tightens. There has to be another way, some other solution. There isn't, Eleanor Sutton says sadly. We've had 150 years to search for alternatives. This is the only option. When? Elias asks. His voice sounds distant, detached, as if coming from someone else. When would this need to happen? Soon? Days, perhaps a week. The veil is thinning rapidly now. We can feel it fraying. When it tears, there will be no warning. I need time to think. Of course. But Elias, think carefully. Think about what matters. The safety of millions or your own life as you know it. The 7 souls begin to fade. Their glow diminishing, forms becoming transparent. Wait, Mara calls out. Who was he? The man who convinced you to perform the ritual? Who started all of this? Father Whitmore's voice is barely audible as he vanishes. He never gave us a name, but he had a symbol, a mark on his hand, a circle with 7 points, and an 8th in the centre. Then they're gone. The protective circle remains intact. The candles still burn, but the ruins feel emptier now, abandoned. Elias and Mara sit in stunned silence. Barley whines softly, pushing his head into Elias's lap, offering wordless comfort. Crowe, Mara finally says, you're not seriously considering... I don't know what I'm considering. He runs both hands through his hair. I need to think, process, understand what we just learned. You can't sacrifice yourself. There has to be another way. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. But right now we need to get out of here, review the evidence, and figure out our next move. They pack up the equipment mechanically, neither speaking. The weight of what they've learned presses down on them both. 7 souls holding back darkness for over a century. A veil between worlds that's about to tear open. And Elias Crowe, marked since childhood, apparently destined, asked to become the 8th anchor, the living seal that could prevent catastrophe. As they load into the SUV, Mara breaks the silence. I meant what I said. We find another way. We don't let them force you into this. They're not forcing me. They're asking, and if there really is no other option, if it comes down to my life versus millions of others, what choice do I really have? He starts the engine, pulls away from the chapel ruins. Behind them, in the darkness, something watches them leave, something that's been waiting a very long time, something that knows the veil is finally, inevitably thinning, and when it tears open, the real investigation will begin. Epilogue. In Paranormal Studies and Investigations office, night 3 a.m. The office is dark except for the glow of Elias's laptop screen. He sits alone at his desk reviewing footage from the chapel, frame by frame, analysing every detail of the seven souls' appearance, every word they spoke, the child version of himself, the one who claimed to be the seventh soul. How is that possible? He doesn't have answers, just more questions. The computer chimes. New email. This time the sender field reads, "A friend." Elias opens it, already knowing it will provide more mysteries than solutions. "You did well tonight, Elias, but this is just the beginning. The seven souls told you their story, but they didn't tell you everything. The man with the symbol, the one who convinced them to open the veil, he's still out there, still working, still opening doors. And you're not the only one who's been marked. There are others, people across Brisbane, across Australia, who touched the veil at various points in their lives, who've been waiting, unknowing for the moment when they'd be called. Find them, gather them, because when the veil tears open, you're going to need all the help you can get, or you can become the eighth anchor. Sacrifice yourself, hold the darkness back for another generation. Either way, time is running out. Choose wisely." A friend. Below, the message is an attachment, a list of names and locations. Elias downloads it, 37 names, 37 people scattered across Queensland who, according to this mysterious source, have touched the veil at some point. 37 potential allies, or 37 more people in danger. The front door opens. Mara enters, carrying 2 large coffees and a bag from the all-night bakery down the street. "Couldn't sleep either?" she asks, setting the coffee in front of him. "Not really. What are you looking at?" He shows her the email. She reads it, expression growing more concerned with each line. "So now there are others," she says. "More people involved?" "Apparently. This is getting bigger, Crowe. Way bigger than one haunted house in Paddington." "I know. What are we going to do?" Elias looks at the list of names, at the evidence from their investigation, at the future spreading out before them in infinite complications. "What we always do," he says. "We investigate, we gather evidence, we try to understand, and we help people however we can, even if it means we'll cross that bridge if we come to it. Right now, we have 37 people to locate and interview. We have a mystery spanning over a century to unravel. And we have maybe a week before the veil tears open. So we're doing this? We're doing this." Mara pulls up a chair beside him, opens her own laptop. "Where do we start?" "The first name on the list lives in New Farm, about 20 minutes from here. We contact them tomorrow, explain the situation as best we can, and see what they know." "And Sarah? The other residents of Lock Street?" "We warn them, tell them what we learned, give them the option to evacuate temporarily or stay and help us prepare." "Prepare for what exactly?" "For whatever comes through when the veil tears." They sit side by side, beginning to plan, making lists, strategizing, doing what they do best, taking the impossible and breaking it down into manageable steps. Outside, Brisbane sleeps, unaware, unprepared, but that's about to change. because the veil is thinning. The 7 souls can't hold much longer, and Elias Crowe has to decide, become a living anchor and sacrifice the life he knows, or find another way to seal the passage between worlds before darkness floods through. He doesn't know which choice he'll make, but he knows one thing for certain. The investigation into Sarah Brightwell's haunted house was just the beginning. The real work starts now. End of episode 1. Next episode, The Marked Ones. Elias and Mara begin tracking down the 37 people who've touched the veil, but someone, or something, is hunting them. One by one, the marked individuals are disappearing, and the team discovers that the man with the symbol didn't die. In 1873, he's been opening doors for over a century, and he's about to open the biggest one yet.